Welcome. This is just math, y'all, and we're going to go over the properties of real numbers today. Here we go. So, properties of real numbers, these are just going to be short examples of these properties, and these are generally intuitive. So, I'm just going to be brief in discussing these first four properties, and then we will move into the more popular distributive property. So, here we go. Okay. So the first property is the commutative property, which means switching the order does not change the result. And multiplication is commutative. And so when you do multiplication, and this is again intuitive, then you know that 4 times 3 and 3 times 4, well, you get the same answer. So switching the order does not change the result for multiplication. But division, it doesn't work that way. So if you had 8 divided by 2, and you had 2 divided by 8, you're going to get two different answers here. 8 divided by 2, written as a fraction, would be 4. And then 2 divided by 8, well, if we reduce that, we get 1/4, and that is not equal. 4 is not equal to 1/4. Okay, so multiplication is commutative, division is not. Now, combining positives and negatives is commuting. Now, remember, combining positives and negatives. So like if I had -3 plus 4 and 4 plus a -3, remember the signs are different. You subtract, keep the sign of the larger number. Signs are different, subtract, keep the sign of the larger number. So yes, this one is commutative. What was that? This one is commutative. But strict subtraction, like you learned back in, you were told back in your grade school that you couldn't do 6 minus 9. But you can. But they're not commutative. They're not the same answer. 9 minus 6 is a +3. Again, signs different. Subtract the numbers, keep the sign of the larger number. Signs different. Subtract, keep the sign of the larger number. So this one is not commutative. Okay, so multiplication and addition are commutative. Division and subtraction is not. All right, associative property. This one deals with the grouping of numbers. So it kind of gives you some order of operation flexibility so you can group them differently and still get the same number because it doesn't change the answer, but you can't always do it. Combining positive and negatives is associative. So if you had -3 plus 4, you did that one first, and then you subtracted 7, you should get the same thing as if you subtracted the 7 first from the 4 and then added the 3. Notice the order in which they are written is not changed. So this is the associative property. It's not the order in which they are written, it's the order in which they are done. So order of operations says I need to do -3 plus 4 first, and that's 1. And then 1 minus 7 is -6. And over here, do what's in parentheses first. I get a -3. And so I have a -3 plus a -3. Signs are the same. Add the numbers, keep the sign. And so these are equal. So combining positive negatives is associative. Multiplication is associative. So when I'm doing multiplying 3 numbers together, when I multiply 3 numbers together, I can pick the order that I do it. So if I do these two first, that would give me 12. And 12 times 2 is 24. But if I did those two first, again, notice the order in which the problem's written is not changed. It's just which ones I do first changes. That's 6. Well, I get 24. So multiplication is associative, but division is not. This is really picky on calculators. You have to be really careful about this one. Okay, so now if I did 12 divided by 3 first, I get 4. And 4 divided by 4 is 1. Okay, but if I did them in a different order, if I did 3 divided by 4 first, well, that doesn't divide. So when it doesn't divide, we write it as a fraction in lowest terms. And now when I do 12 divided by 3/4, okay, remember guys, I told you, you got to handle the fractions. You may not be able to do them the way that I do them, but you've got to be able to get the answer that I'm about to get, whether you're using a calculator to do it or if you want to try to learn it my way. Either way, you've got to be able to survive this problem. Okay, remember, dividing by a fraction is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. Okay, and so that's going to give me, that's not the reciprocal, Miss Cox, get it right. There we go. Would give me 48 over 3. Let's see if I have some scratch paper. And if I do division with 48 and 3, oh goodness, lost my paper. There we go. If I do division with 48 and 3, I'm going to get, that's not right. Sometimes I think too far ahead and write things that are in my head just a little bit. I get 16. And so 1 is not 16. These two problems are not the same. So multiplication is associative, division is not. Okay? All right. The identity properties. The identity properties. Okay, the additive identity is 0. All right, so adding 0 does not change the original value. It maintains its identity. Neither does subtracting 0. So adding or subtracting 0 also works. So just real quick, 3 plus 0 gives me 3. Doesn't change it. Any number plus 0 is going to give me that number. 0 plus x, of course, is just going to give me x. And 5 minus 0, of course, gives me 5. So adding or subtracting 0 does not change the original value. Okay, now the multiplicative identity is 1, which means multiplying by 1 does not change the original value. And by the same reason, division by 1 as well. Okay, so multiplying and dividing by 1 does not change what we talked about. We talked about this when we did our fractions. But just a reminder, 5 times 1 is 5. If we did 1/2 times 3 over 3, remember that's 1, we get 3 over 6. Does not change the original value. If I do 1 times x, I get x. Multiplying by 1 does not change it. If I do x divided by 1, I still get x. Okay. All right. And if I did a reduce of fractions, that's not what I'm going to do. 4 over 6. If I divide by 1, it's not going to change the original quantity. It maintains its original value. Okay. And then the inverse properties. All right. The additive inverse is its opposite. So adding a number to its inverse results in the identity of 0. So basically adding a number to its opposite. So -3 and 3 are opposites. And if I add them, I get 0. 1 and -1 are opposites. And if I add them, I get 0. So 8 and -8 gives me 0. Or negative number, -x plus x is going to give me 0. Okay. And then the multiplicative inverse is reciprocal. Multiplying a number by reciprocal results in the identity of 1. So if I have 4 and 1/4, those are reciprocals. If I multiply them, I'm going to get 1. Remember, this is going to be over 1, and that gives me 4 over 4, which we know is 1. And if I did 3/5 multiplied by its reciprocal, I'm going to get 1. I get 15 over 15, which is, of course, 1. And if I take x and I multiply it by its reciprocal, I'm going to get 1. So multiplying a number by its reciprocal is always going to give you 1. Okay? All right. Now, I'm going to go to video number 2, where we're going to talk about the distributive property, which is the big one. Okay? So that gets its own video. All right? It's just math, y'all. You can do it.